Peter's mother visited Margot's hair salon every fortnight and as a result, knew the proprietor, Margot, very well. As well as the usual soap operas, holidays, celebrity gossip and current affairs conversations, Peter himself is often the subject of their bi-weekly chats. Like many 16-year-old boys, he gets up to mischief once in a while, but since he got in with a certain crowd, his mother fears he's headed down the wrong path. When he was little, I'd threaten him with a dress, which always did the trick, she reminisces. But he's too old for petticoating. Petticoating? Margot asks. You know, a naughty boy plus a pretty dress equals a good boy. Peter's mother replies. You put him in a dress when he was naughty? Margot quizzes, clearly taken aback at the revelation. Yes, occasionally, more often than not just the threat of a dress would curb his behavior, she replied. You must have heard of petticoating. Well, I'm familiar with the concept, but haven't heard it called petticoating before. Margot replies, and I had no idea people actually did it. Only when he was really naughty. He used to look quite sweet in a dress, obviously he hated it, but... The door opened and a customer entered. Margot welcomed the lady and asked her to take a seat. Margot changed the conversation to one more mainstream as she finished Peter's mother's hair. Before long she was finished. Peter's mother paid, booked her next appointment and left. A fortnight later, she returned to Margot's. Good morning, Heather, how are you? Margot asked. Fine, thank you. Peter's mother replied. As Margot begins doing Heather's hair, the usual small talk begins and it doesn't take long before Margot brings up the petticoating conversation again. You mentioned you used to put your son in a dress when he was naughty, but if he hated it so much, how did you actually put him in it? Well, the first time he flat refused to wear it or threw an enormous tantrum. I've never agreed with corporal punishment, so I wasn't prepared to physically force him into it. So what did you do? I waited a few days. Heather replied. Then one Sunday morning he woke up to find the dress was his only option. And he just wore it. It was either that or spend the day naked. What was it like? Just a plain frock I found in a charity shop. Nothing special, brown plaid with short sleeves and a belt I recall. Did he have just that or did you buy him any more? Oh, after a while he had quite a few. Heather replied. On several occasions he'd be playing up in town and I'd threaten him with a dress day, which usually stopped him in his tracks, but occasionally he'd go too far, so I marched him into the nearest charity shop and buy him his next frock right in front of him. He never knew when he'd end up wearing it, but he knew it would be soon. Margot smiled as she visualized the scene. Did you hold them against him in the shop? Of course. I think he hated that more than actually wearing it, and I made it perfectly clear to the assistant that it was for him because he'd been naughty. It must have been a very humbling experience for him. Margot said. Did you make him wear knickers too? Oh yes, but they didn't come from the charity shop. Heather replied. Girls' shoes and socks too. Poor thing, it sounds delightful. Margot replied. When was the last time? Oh, it'll be around the time he started high school, so 5, maybe 6 years ago. And you haven't needed to petticoat him since? Well, he was getting too old for it and it was only necessary on the odd occasion, she replied. Once every month or two I guess, plus once they've got a games console, the threat of losing that is usually enough.